previous year questions from your CDP paper, that is your Child Development and Pedagogy paper. We are going to discuss 10 important questions, and the 10 questions are the previous year questions, because these are the questions which came in the previous years, and we have selected them only for you in this pattern, where we will be discussing not only the questions and the options, but also we will be discussing the interrelated concepts and the themes related with the questions. Okay, let's start with the session. Okay, hope you all have understood what we are going to do today in this session. Okay, so the first question is on ego, superego, id, and libido. Now, do you know the concept of the psychoanalysis given by Sigmund Freud, the great American psychologist? Okay, he has being a psychologist, he understood psychology with the help of our unconscious. Now, Sigmund Freud, you need to understand his contribution to the understanding of our unconscious as well as our dreams, okay, which helps us to understand what we are thinking, and on the basis of that how we react. Okay, now what happens, one more important thing which is to be the concern of this question is superego. Now, what is superego? But before going to the concept of superego, we need to know what is actually ego and what is actually id, and along with that we also need to know what is libido. Okay, now students, there is the concept of id, then we have ego, then we have superego, and in the last we have libido. So what are these four concepts? These are the four concepts to understand our unconscious self. So this unconscious self can be understood only when we understand these concepts. Now, what are these concepts? The first thing which we need to know is id. Now, what is id? Id is nothing else but it is our instinctual inclinations. Okay. So what do we understand from it? These are the instincts actually, or we can say the instinctual inclination which makes us or which force us to do something according to our mental needs or the needs of our unconscious. Next, we have the concept of ego. Now, what is ego? Ego is nothing else, it is the reality. Okay, what is reality? Reality is nothing else but it is the ego. Now, in ego, we understand that how we need to work in order to fulfill the practical needs of our life, which is in collaboration with our conscious self as well as the unconscious self. Okay. Next, we have the concept of superego. Now, when we come to understand the concept of superego, these two things, superego is nothing else, it is id plus ego. Okay. When id and ego is cooperated, or we can say it comes in combination and it helps to formulate or execute the concepts of id as well as ego, that is nothing else but superego. Now, superego is actually, we can also say the other name as conscience. What is conscience? Our conscience, that is how we need to have some kind of moral inclination in order to execute our ego and eat. So we need to have some kind of social perspective or understanding in order to formulate or execute what we feel or what we need actually. And the collaboration of our moral instinct, or we can say the social instinct, along with our internal and individual instinct, is actually the superego. And the question itself, what is superego? Superego is equivalent to our conscience. Okay. So this is the correct answer. But here we come to know that we have already understood what is id, what is ego, what is superego. But left with us is what? Libido. Now, what is libido? Libido is nothing else but it is the sexual instinct, or we can say the lust, the craze for lust, or we can also say the craze for some kind of sexual commitment or completion. Yes, these are the four important concepts, or we can say the four parts of our unconscious as well as our conscious self, which helps us to execute our needs, our instincts, and our desires. Yes. So these terms are very similar, but though they are similar, they have their individual differences. So we need to understand whenever there are some crucial questions, or we can say some intricating questions, we need to understand the core theme of these words and what are the meanings or relation to CDP, or we can say the child development pedagogy. Yes. Next, moving on to the next question. Dreams are direct representation of our dreams. Now, when we term about dreams, what happens? What is dream actually? Dreams are nothing else but it is the contribution, or we can say whatever we think in our unconscious self. So we will term it as the unconscious self, or we can also say the unconscious reality, or the reality which is felt, or which is actually thought about in our unconscious, and it is represented in what? In the form of our dreams. Okay. So be very specific and clear whenever you get questions related with dreams. Okay. Next, we have question number 3. What do you understand by action research? Now, this is one of the question which is evolving now. This type of questions are coming in the question paper where you need to know what is action research. Now, about research, you already have heard about being a teacher and being qualified for CTET. You already know what is what is research. But apart from research, here the other word which is added with research is action. And whenever we say that something is related with our works or activities or what we do for some kind of research, that is thing is actually action. And whenever the word action itself comes, we refer to some kind of spontaneous activity, or we can also say to some kind of prompt action or prompt activity which is being carried out. But when we refer to something which is related with education and with the child development and the child pedagogy, so we can relate that some kind of research should be done in the grassroots level, or we can say in the education level. So in the education system, when there is some kind of research, we term it as action research. Now, moving on to the options, the first one is applied research. Now, when we term it as action research, it can't be applied because action research is something which is to be carried out, and applied is something when we apply some kind of theorems or some kind of approaches on the applicable students, or which is executed. Yes. But action is something which is carried out before the application or before the actual occurrence. So the prior information, or we can say the prior work that the teacher needs to do before going on to the students and interacting with them, is that they need to do some kind of research, and that is nothing else but It is some kind of a simultaneous investigation. Yes, simultaneous means we need to teach them, and at the same time we need to understand their mentality, and at the same time we also need to take some of the steps in order to cure some of the problems that the students are actually facing. Yes, so we will move on with the simultaneous investigation. Now, what is prolonged investigation? Prolonged means something which is very lengthy. Next, we have the fourth option, that is socio-economic research. Now, when we term that it is something related with socio-economic research, that is about our environment or society. So that won't come here. But yes, we can imply to some extent action research in this field too. But here we are referring to only the CDP. So we will relate it with education system. Yes. Moving on to the next question, question number 4. What is the best educational program? Now, whenever we are speaking about the various schemes and about the various strategies and about the system of education which is going on at the present situation, we need to understand which one is the best system or we can say the best education system or policy in order to understand the child and bring out or reap out the best from the child. So that is possible only when we have or when we understand the problems of the child and we help the child to overcome those problems and interact with us. So moving on to the options, need of the child, ability of the child, interest of the child, and the fourth one is need of the child in addition to all the above. So when we are referring to the child itself, the child is actually the microcosm or the unit of the education system. So when we actually understand what is the child and what is his needs and interest and ability, we need to understand all these things, that is need, interest and ability in the form of his society. So he or she is one of the part of the society, and his needs and interest and ability should collaborate and should come up with the development of the society. Only then the education system is going to become a fruitful education system. And so we will move on with the option 4, that is option D, which is referring to the need of the society in addition to all the other 3 options. Yes. Next, what is the Cephalocodal Principle of education? Now, whenever we term that there is some kind of a cephalocodal process of development or cephalocodal process of education, always remember that it is nothing else but it is the system which moves from head to toe. So I need that you all be very clear come in your exam, and it is repeatedly asked, and it is frequently asked in almost all the years, all the sets of the CTET question paper, and that is the Cephalocodal Principle or system of education, which is nothing else but it is the process or development which moves or growth which moves from head to toe. Okay. So it is something which is longitudinal process. Next we have, what do you understand by nature, nurture? Now nature and nurture is one of the principle of education where the students need to understand, where the teachers actually need to understand that a student is actually a unit of the entire education system, or we can say the society. And when he or she is a member of the society, a member of the education system, or a member of the economic society, he or she has some biological inclination, or we can say some biological instincts. Now, whenever there is some kind of a bondage, or we can also say some inclination towards his or her heredity, or we can say the biology, and at the same time he or she is developing, he is nurturing himself along with the system of the education, that is the process where actually it is called as the nature, nurture policy of education. So here the student has some kind of biological needs, or we can say the biological instincts, in addition to the nurture, that means rearing, we can say the rearing process. Okay, moving on with the options, we have biological environment, biological information, biological status, and none. So moving on with the concept of nature and nurture, we understand these two things. That means we have some kind of biology, or we can also say heredity, in terms of his education, and so we will move on with the biological information in helping with education system. Okay, hope this is clear. Yes, then moving on to question number 7. Hope this is clear till here. Heredity and environment are dashed to each other. Now see, whenever we are speaking about heredity, biology, that means we have some kind of a inclination towards our forefathers, or we are here because of our forefathers. So our identity is practically applicable, or we have our identity from the basis of our heredity. And so the heredity is a important ingredient, or we can say an important part in our development. So whenever we are speaking about heredity and development environment, we will always speak about the progressive development, where heredity collaborates with the environment to bring out the outmost outcome of development. So here it is, the relationship between heredity and environment is what kind of a relationship we are speaking about. That is, it is dependent, yes. It is complementary, yes, definitely it's complementary. Supplementary, no, it is not supplementary. That means it is not something which is in addition, but both of them are actually important in the same situation. And the fourth one is cooperative. So we will move on with all the three options except C. Yes, yes. Do you understand the concept that environment and heredity are both the intermingling part which need to intermingle in order to bring out the development of education system? Next, question number 8. In which stage children become inclined to their peer groups? So what do you understand by peer groups actually? Peer groups are the groups, that means the groups which are alike, okay? Or we can say same group, or we can also say friends. So in which stage people are actually inclined towards their friends? Okay. So that is the stage, that is that this happens, definitely it happens in adulthood, but prominently when we are speaking about child development and pedagogy, we will refer to adolescence, and the correct answer is adolescence period, and that is the period from age 11 to 19. Now this is the period when children are very much inclined towards their friends, towards their groups, that is the peer groups. Why? Because in this stage, we can also say the other term for this stage is nothing else but the storm and stress stage. Storm and stress stage. So this is the stage when children actually, or students actually, face the problem of some kind of harsh behavior towards them from their parents, or they care from their elders. And so this is the stage of storm and stress, and identified as storm and stress because the children has to face a lot of problems mentally as well as physically. Yes. Next, moving on to question number 9. Child-centered pedagogy means what? Is it moral education, or is it child's participation? Now, whenever we are speaking about child-centered, though moral education is one of the important factor, but we will move on with the child's participation factor, because whenever it is child-centered, that means the child is in center and the other things revolve around him. So we need to understand what is his needs, what is his ability, what is his interest, and how that can be developed or how that can be nurtured properly in order to bring out the full, or we can say the optimal utilization of his intellect. Yes? Next, the last question for today's session, that is question number 10. Early childhood is dash period for language development. Now, whenever we are speaking about the early childhood period, now that is the period where we are actually developing our interacting skills, or we can also say the language ability, and that is the time when actually a child needs to incorporate some kind of talent in order to understand language and in order to express what he thinks, what he feels to the outer world. So, in that way, the child is trying to make a bond with the outer society or the society around him. So, that is the stage which is early period, which is in the early period. That means we can say from the age group of two to from we can also say one, also we can say from the age group from the age 1 to 5 years. So that is very much important, that is very crucial, but the options are crucial, neutral, sensitive, none. So we can say, though it is one of the crucial factor, we will move on. When it is a single term, we will move on with the sensitive thing, because it is one of the sensitive principle of developing a language, because a child has to be very much prompt, very much clear while expressing what he thinks internally, and that should be modulated, or we can say it is language is actually the medium through which or by which a child can express his inner feelings. And so in this time, the children is very much sensitive, or we can also say always pampering or always traumatizing his or her elders to express or identify what is this, what is that, what it does, or what it can happen, so etc etc, a lot of things, a lot of questions, or we can also say the child which belongs to this group is always full of questions. So in order to fulfill all the questions, you should be, being a teacher, being a parent, actually you need to be very much calm and patient towards their inquisitions, towards their ability to understand things, and towards their craze to understand new things each and every day. So this is the period which is a sensitive period. So hope this is clear. Hope you all have understood what I'm actually trying to speak here, what I'm actually trying to make you understand. So with this, we come to the end of the session. Thank you for being with us, and hope that we are actually going to conduct the paid classes for CTET from the month of July. And if you are liking the session, and if you are thinking that the quality of our session or the quality of the content that we are teaching here is up to the mark and you like it, and then please share and subscribe, and also try to subscribe, try to be a paid student under us, so that we can help you to fulfill your qualifying marks for the CTET exam and also score more marks, because now it is a stage of competition, and only qualifying for the exam won't help you to get a job. So in order to get a job, you need to score more. Out of 150, you need to score more than 120, being a general student or a student from the caste background. So if you are liking the session, do like, share, and subscribe us, because we are going to enroll, we are going to take admission to students for the paid classes from the month of July. Okay, thank you for being with us throughout the session.